This week on It's Clear as Mud, we're going to learn how to trim large flat forms without deflecting or changing their shape. So stay tuned.
Hi, welcome to my YouTube channel. This is Clear as Mud. This is Jeff Patterson. If you haven't been here before, please like and subscribe and take a minute to do that. If I can earn your subscription, that make me terribly happy. Today we're going to look at putting feet on the bottom of plates and bowls. And this is a technique I use for large flat surfaces that I don't want to warp and they're still green, but I got to flip them over and trim them. And I do this without trimming. So my suggestion to you is after you're done with this video, go take a look at the video on building the caulking gun extruder, because that's a really handy little device to do this with. Okay, let's get going. So here's a plate that I've trimmed, and this is about a 1/4 inch bottom, and it's got a nice foot that goes all the way around, in contrast to it being flat or not having any feet at all, and also not being concaved. So how I do this is I throw my plate to a specific size and you adjust that plate for shrinkage. So I got 12% shrinkage. So I have this dialed in, and I keep those records in a book, and I know exactly what it's going to be to throw this plate each and every time. So here's a plate that I've thrown. It's still on the bat. It's been cut off. It has not been trimmed. And I need to get it off of here, although it's still moist enough and damp enough that if I flip it over, a good chance is that it's going to warp down. Gravity's going to push it down. So here's what I do. I have a selection of these things. They're just discs of wood that are cut out of plywood or masonite or whatever I have laying around. Some of them are plywood, some of them are this new stuff that I built my bath system out of. I use either foam, or sometimes I use bubble pack if I don't have any foam around. And that gives me some cush between this piece and the bottom of the plate. Now I use different sized ones for different size pieces. So this is an 11 incher, and it's good for a pretty big bowl. And then this is about an 8 incher, which is just about perfect for this. It covers all the way across. And it gives me good support. Now, how do you support that? What I do is I take a ball of clay and I put it in the center. Is one way of doing it. Or I can take several balls of clay and put them around the side. Now, the trick here is you don't want an enormous amount of clay in here, because you have to pop this thing around and center it again. But you also want it to barely stick down when you put the bat on. So you want it to be pretty close to where the level is going to be for the bat to sit on the rim of the pottery. And you're going to find that out pretty quickly where that is, and you're going to be able to feel it when you put another bat on top of it. So I'm going to use 4 this time because this is fairly wide and I want it supported on the edges. So I'm going to take another bat. You'll notice this bat has rings drawn on it from the center. So 280 millimeters, 230 millimeters, and 340 millimeters. And that gives me some idea of centering as well, because we're going to tap this into place. And you're going to set this bat on top of that plate. And right now it's rubbing on the balls. The balls are a little bit too big. So I'm going to adjust those balls down to the point where they just barely touch the bat before it touches the lip of the plate. And then I'm going to put a hand onto the bat that's on the bottom, and I'm going to put a hand on the bat that's on the top, and I'm going to flip it over. Now what I can do is put my hand underneath, put a little pressure on the bat, and peel that second bat off. You can see I haven't even trimmed it yet or cleaned it up. So now we need to put this on the wheel head and find the holes, pin it on the wheel head, and tap it into place. Now I'm going to use my lines here to get me real close to where I want to be tapped into place without having to tap it too much and without having to disturb those balls that are underneath it. It's almost there now. I really wouldn't have to do much to it. Okay, so now I'm supported in the center. I've got a piece of plywood underneath there that's allowing me to put some pressure on this damp clay. So I can wad up some clay on the sides and hold my plate in place. One of the tricks that I like to do is I squeeze my clay in between my fingers, and I get those little tippies from in between the fingers, and you can put those tips right up against the pottery without putting a lot of pressure on the pottery. It's a heck of a thing to knock it out of round while you're putting your balls of clay on, and it's another thing to distort the pot. Sometimes the pots are wet enough that you can push them out of round, and those little tips really help a lot for just holding it in place without creating a lot of pressure on that pottery. So now I'm going to score this, and you can do that with a needle tool or a knife. Score a lip around the edge. You can do it while the wheel's running. Now I have this in another video, one of my videos on how to throw a bowl, and I show you how to throw a foot. So that's what we're doing here. We're throwing a foot on this thing. Okay, so here's the caulking gun extruder, and I've got a 1/4-inch hole drilled in this particular tube in this cap. So we're going to take some slip and slip that ring around the edge. And then we're going to extrude a length of caulking out of the caulking gun that's long enough to do the foot. And I need something that's probably 30 inches long or so for this. Now, an important consideration when you're doing this is which way that the wheel is turning. I like to start in front of me and work counterclockwise for a right-handed guy like myself, and put my coil all the way around. And what I do is I come on the coil and I smooth it down there, come in it and come over the top of it with this one. And that way, when the wheel is coming around this way, I'm going over the top of my coil and I'm not catching the coil and ripping it off. Then you want to take some kind of a plate or something, straighten your coil up a little bit and put a little pressure on that. Seat that coil. It doesn't take much. And now we throw that coil in place. Want to go slow and smooth at first. And this is like goalposting. You've done this maneuver many times on the sides of your pot when trimming the top with a needle tool or doing anything like that. Clean it up with a sponge. I like to come in and with a rib tool and burnish my inside. Get that all nice, and I can do that because I've got that plywood in there now. You know, I'm not going to push this thing down. It's not going to go very far if I do. And there you go. Now, what I do is I take this and I set it off to the side someplace, and I let it harden up for half an hour, 45 minutes or so, depending on what your weather's doing, to the point where the wheel, the foot isn't tacky. And then I can put a piece of paper on here, like so. Come in with my flat bat again, give it a little pressure, just a little bit, to make sure that it's all even and flat, and then pull that paper off. And now I've got a foot that I know is not going to rock or do any of that kind of stuff on me. Later on, I let it dry like this, supported. And when the foot is capable of being flipped over and not distorting it, I put another bat on it again, flip it back over, and put it on the shelf. There you go. So go look at the caulking gun. This little caulking gun is great for this because you can load it up. You can keep it in your pottering area, and you can put out fresh, soft extrusion. And then I store it in a plastic bag when I go to lunch or something like that, so it doesn't harden up. Thanks for coming by, and please like and subscribe and share this if you can. And I appreciate your time. Here's mud in your eye.